The day they tried to discipline me for working too hard, I didn't argue, I didn't beg, I didn't explain myself for the 10th time. I handed over my badge, dropped every key on the desk, and walked out of the most prestigious private college in the state like I'd never belonged there in the first place. And the funniest part? Everything had worked perfectly. Not a single classroom issue. Not one. They just needed someone to blame for their own incompetence. Midway through my career, I landed a job at this elite private college. I worked in IT, responsible for a handful of servers and pretty much every piece of classroom tech: projectors, audio systems, lecture capture, control panels, the whole ecosystem that professors suddenly can't live without once it becomes standard. Every summer we got a budget. My portion usually went into upgrades, mostly audio/video modernization across multiple lecture halls. Summer was always the busy season, but it was manageable, until the administration planted a time bomb a few years earlier. They dropped around $100,000 on new equipment for several rooms, and then never set aside a single cent in future budgets for repairs or replacements when it inevitably started failing. No long-term plan, no life cycle budget, just a shiny purchase and a pat on the back. I'd been there 5 years by the time that gear started dying on schedule. The problem was my budget didn't go up, not even a little. Meanwhile, the college had become even more dependent on those rooms functioning flawlessly, so now I had to replace failing equipment in the premium rooms with the same limited funds, while still doing the upgrades planned for other classrooms. So I did what I always did. I made it work. I optimized purchasing, switched to more budget-friendly brands where I could, reused what was reusable, did extra labor myself to avoid paying contractors. Basically, I squeezed blood from a stone. Then shipments got delayed, and suddenly most of the equipment arrived late, leaving me about a month to rip out old systems, run new wiring, install and configure everything in roughly 15 classrooms, and then update and test the rooms we weren't fully rebuilding, all before the semester started. If you've ever supported classroom tech, you know what "before semester starts" really means. Zero tolerance for failure. Professors don't care why it's broken. Administration doesn't care either. They just want to walk into a room, push a button, and pretend the magic happens. So I worked like a machine. For 28 straight days, no days off, I came in every single day and worked 8 to 10 hours, sometimes more. I was salaried, so I wasn't clocking overtime. That was part of the deal. Flexibility. When things were calm, I could breathe. When summer hit, I did what it took so the campus didn't explode in September. By the end of those 28 days, I was wrecked. I got sick, like real, knocked out sick, and collapsed the moment I finally slowed down. Around that time, we had a new supervisor. I'll call him Gus. Gus hadn't been in the role long, and it showed. He acted like he was running a kingdom, but he couldn't even handle basic tasks without dragging his feet. During final pre-semester testing, I discovered the audio driver on one of our top-tier classroom computer models was corrupted. After digging into it, I found the cause. The manufacturer had posted a broken driver package on their server, the exact place we'd been downloading from. That meant we needed to rebuild our deployment image with the correct driver immediately. Gus happened to be the one responsible for the deployment server and imaging process. I brought him the fixed driver and asked him to rebuild the image. He told me, "Yeah, I'll do it." The next day I checked in. Not done. I reminded him we were running out of time. He promised he'd get to it. Next day, still nothing. The day after that, still nothing. Every day that image didn't get rebuilt, my entire workflow slowed down. I had rooms ready to go except for this one stupid bottleneck, and the person who could fix it was just stalling. Eventually, he finally did it, and I went back to finishing the job. But apparently, he didn't like that I'd kept pushing him. I think the pressure made him feel exposed, because the truth was simple. He was incompetent, and he knew it. And instead of improving, he did what weak managers do. He tried to flip the situation into a disciplinary problem, mine. He called me into his office and asked with this fake concern tone why I was working so much. I explained everything. The budget bomb the administration planted years ago, the failing equipment with no replacement funds, the delayed shipments, the extra work I had to do to make cheap equipment behave like premium gear. And then I pointed out very clearly how his delays had directly blocked my work. I told him I came to you day after day after day for that rebuilt image. And yeah, I emphasized it. Each time I said day, I tapped my finger on the edge of his desk, not pounding, not threatening, just stressing how repetitive and ridiculous it was. He wanted to nail me for something, anything, but there was nothing. No missed deadlines, no broken rooms, no complaints. The semester was about to start and the whole campus was ready, so he let me leave his office, but I could tell he wasn't done. Gus was a top-tier suck-up, the kind of guy who orbits whoever has power. He followed our IT director around like a puppy, and of course they were in a band together, so I already knew how this would go. Semester begins, no issues in classrooms, not one. Everything I'd worked myself sick to accomplish actually held. It was smooth. I was proud of that. On the second day of the semester, the IT director calls me into his office. Gus is already there, 2-on-1. The director starts asking why I worked so many hours. I give the exact same explanation. Every reason, every constraint, every logistical reality they clearly didn't understand or didn't want to acknowledge. My explanation shredded any rational complaint they could have had. So Gus switched strategies and started playing victim. He claimed he'd only innocently asked about my workload and that I got aggressive. He said my finger tap on his desk was violent and illustrated his inability to complete tasks on time. It was so absurd I almost laughed. Instead, I did something simple. I made the same exact finger tap gesture on the IT director's desk and said basically, this is what we're calling violent? But it didn't matter. The IT director wasn't looking for the truth. He was looking for dominance. The vibe was obvious. They were going to keep pushing until they found a way to punish me for something. I pointed out again how long Gus took to complete a tiny task that I could have handled in an hour. I called him what he was, ineffective. The director then hinted I needed to show more respect because Gus was my supervisor now. That's when it clicked for me, crystal clear. They weren't upset I worked too much. They were upset I made Gus look incompetent and they needed to put me back in my place. I remember thinking, yeah, screw this. And out loud, I said something that just came out of nowhere, but was so accurate it landed like a punchline. This is like Justin Bieber trying to teach you music theory. It's not inspiring, it's just annoying. To my shock, both of them burst out laughing. Even Gus, even though he was the target of the metaphor. For a moment, I thought maybe they'd snap out of it. Maybe the tension would break and we'd move on. Nope. The director stopped laughing and went right back to that slow, soft, condescending tone, the one people use when they're trying to make you look emotional and irrational. He told me I needed to manage my time better, despite the circumstances. Then he said he wanted me to take a time management course. He also said I should take a couple days off to think about it. And then he asked for my badge and all my keys. That's when everything inside me went quiet, because I understood exactly what that meant. This wasn't take a breath. This was we're asserting control. This was discipline disguised as concern. They wanted to punish me for being competent, and they wanted to do it in a way that made them look reasonable. So I didn't argue. I didn't negotiate. I didn't give them anything else to twist. I handed him my badge, took my keys off the ring, set them down on his desk, and using the same soft, patronizing tone he'd used on me, I smiled and said, "You can keep them." Then I walked out of his office and headed to mine. The director followed me, and I saw it. His eyes were glossy, like he was actually tearing up. Not because he felt bad, because he didn't expect me to refuse the humiliation. He kept repeating, "I just want you to think," over and over, more desperate each time, and I kept answering calmly, "I already did." He finally disappeared back into his office with Gus, probably to panic about how they were going to fill the hole I just left. I knew my access would get shut off fast, so I moved quickly. I typed an email to my coworkers telling them I was leaving and that it had been genuinely good working with them. I grabbed my personal stuff and headed out. At the door, Gus and the director tried to help, like they were attempting to rewind the moment to make some show of goodwill. But it was too late. I'd given them 5 years, I'd rebuilt broken systems, I'd taken classrooms from constant failures, 4 or 5 complaints a day, to a couple complaints every 2 weeks. I'd automated so much that the job became smooth and sustainable. When my side was under control, I even volunteered to help the help desk. No one asked me. I did it because I could, and because the team needed it. And Gus? He was the kind of guy who would smoke all day and dump tasks onto student workers who knew barely anything, yet still somehow knew more than he did. I had no real issue with him until he became my supervisor and tried to use authority to cover his laziness. Later, I found out a programmer had quit the week before I did because the IT director treated her like garbage too. I hadn't known why she vanished so suddenly, but the office manager told me she left the same way I did. No plan, no warning, just done. And about a year after I left, I heard the IT director was gone too. The rumor was he'd been working for another company during college hours, basically getting paid for 2 jobs while doing one. Administration caught him. He got warned, and instead of owning it, he left. The only thing I regret is not leaving sooner. Because here's the part people always love to say after stories like this. Well, you did it to yourself. You chose to work those hours. Sure, I did, and I would have done it again. Working hard wasn't the problem. The problem was that the director ignored the reality of the situation, ignored the obstacles, ignored the results, and decided the only explanation was that I was incompetent and needed discipline. I never complained to them, not once. I just handled it. I only laid it all out when they tried to punish me for delivering a flawless semester start. And once someone tries to train you like a dog for doing your job well, that's not a workplace anymore. That's a warning. So I took it, and I left.
That's where the story ends. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and see you next time.